Now that we've got a grasp on UV layout, we can start looking for ways to speed things up a little bit. Matter of fact, I left a little bit of a clue in my previous video. If you managed to extrapolate the quick method from that one, congratulations. Now, first things first, just like before, we don't need the extra wheels. They are all the same, so we can delete those for the time being and duplicate them later. Next, I'm just going to grab all my different parts, UV, and then I'm going to throw a planar projection across the entire thing all at once. There. Now, I don't really care what it looks like over here. That's not going to matter. Point is just to get it all put together first, so I don't have a bunch of random seams thrown in here that I don't want. Because now that we've got the UVs projected like this, we can start adding our own seams in. I go to UV, cut and sew UV tool. If I find a spot where I want to cut out a UV shell from the rest of it, I can just double click an edge, and that cuts that whole edge. And now that has been cut out from the rest of the shell. Grab that individual shell, wherever you are. Come here, you. There you are. Pull that out. And if I were to unfold this, there. Already done, pretty much. Now, if your model is symmetrical, you can cut your time in half again by setting the symmetry to whichever direction it is symmetrical in. This should be symmetrical in the X direction. And that means that if I go up here to find my 3D cut and sew tool, if I cut this edge, to remove this window, I'll cut the same ones on the other side. Cut over here, and it cuts over there. Find my UV shells I just cut out. Unfold those. Don't worry about the sizes right now. That'll be fixed when we get to the layout in my next video. Right now, I'm just cutting it up into smaller, easy to work with parts. And I can cut all the places where I had my shells separate out previously. Oops. Gotta be careful. If I double click and it cuts so I don't want to, I just undo that. I can just click and cut once, but only if this is adjacent to a pre-existing cut. If I click a single edge down here, it's not going to cut anything. So I have to follow a pre-existing one down to here, like that. Careful, there's some loops in here that I keep forgetting exist. Same with the front. Cut the bottom off. And I should just be able to grab all these UV shells right here and hit unfold. And look at that. Everything cut up in just a couple minutes. The wheel as well. First of all, I'll do that much. Maybe I'll do a little bit less than I did last time. There we go. Figure out where the bottom is, cut that. In this case, the symmetry isn't really working because I had set to world symmetry. That's fine. There's not as much here to work with. Look at that. Hardly any time at all. And the reason why I insist on teaching the other version first is simply because sometimes the geometry you're working with just doesn't play well with this method, and it helps to know how to do it correctly. For instance, I might look at this and say, oh, I don't like the way this got unfolded. I want to redo that. Well, I know that I can just select these faces here, reproject them using the old method, grab the faces, and select, planar project, and then I'll unfold using the old way. Sometimes it's rather unexpected what goes wrong. So for a cylindrical shape like this, you wouldn't expect there to be any problems. It's a simple enough shape. You expect to wind up with something like this pretty easily. So if I go UV planar, it projects it. Then I get my cut and sew. I'll cut off the top, cut off the bottom, and just cut one of these edges here. Unfold, and I've only got one shell. Where's the top and bottom? Well, here's the thing. When it projected the top and bottom into straight lines pretty much. They're just so projecting the side, and so it looks just a straight line instead of a circle. Case like this, you have to project them again in order to get to actually work. Otherwise, they'll unfold to a zero pretty much. They'll shrink down to nothing and disappear on you. Other issues happen sometimes, but they're not as reliable and predictable, so I'm not really sure how to demonstrate them, but it's always a good idea to know the reliable way to unfold when this method doesn't work. But this method works most of the time, so that's not much of an issue. All right. That's it for the quick way.